So we're now going to take a look at the bevel face. I've not completely finished the bottom because I just want to make sure that I get this roughed in and all the heavy scraping's done, just in case there's any kind of distortion set in. It's got time for that bottom face to level out whilst I'm roughing in this one. I've gone over it and give it a couple of passes. Not quite removed all the machining marks. You can see a couple of swirls still, but it's not there's not many. Nice job on the machining from Clive, by the way. So first issue you got to be able to hold it, and there's different ways you can do it. It's actually not that hard to sit one of these flat like that on your workbench and scrape it down. It's actually quite easy. Problem is you've still got to print the thing, and to print it you can either put this edge face over the edge of the stone and you'll get a reasonable print. Don't move it too much because it's not easy to try and get it all balanced, but you struggle doing a rotation test on it. So what you really want is a straight edge about the same size, and what I've got is that one, which I've put over my stone, tickled it up, and I now know that that's about right. So I shall set the camera up, and hopefully we won't get any more big claps of thunder, which scared the willies out of me a second ago. I wasn't expecting it. I'll set the camera up and we'll do the first print. Just a quick bit of advice. Where you've got the change in direction, Clive's done a pretty good job of milling these flattened down, but there's just a tiny little burr here on each end. It's nothing. 5 minutes we're fine and it's off both, but if you don't take it off, it can be just a pain in the arse when you're actually trying to get a print and it goes up, rides up and gives you a false print. Might only be half a thou, but it'll ruin your print. So just spend a few minutes and just run your fingers around the edges and make sure there is nothing untoward. I will get a different camera angle in a minute so you're actually not looking over the top of it, but I've lowered the straight edge on. I've marked the end of it so I know that this end's always going down at this side. It's got a couple of pinch holes there, and straight away you can see it's pivoted in the middle. So just to give us an idea of how high it is, I've got a little tiny tip of a 1 thou feeler gauge, and what I'm looking at doing is, can I get it to start or go under? Barely pricking under the edge there. Now if I push down on this end so it seats at that end, yeah, I can get that under a third of the way. So I would suggest that there's probably half a thou hump in the middle. So that's the first thing we take out, because the last thing you want when you're trying to produce a flat face and you're working on a straight edge is, if you've got a hump, you run the risk of the straight edge basically doing that over it. So you get what looks to be a nice even print, but when you do the rotation test, it's blatantly obvious it ain't flat. If I don't just check on the screen, see if that's actually coming through. No, it's too far away. You can see the print area here. What we're going to do is just take that middle third down. We're going to do a pass each direction and then reprint it. We want it printing on the ends, and then we'll take the ends down until we get an even print. Again, we're not looking at taking off half a thou on depth, we're just peeking off the surface. My scrapes are overlapping because I'm looking at dropping the surface, not just taking the peaks off a few hard points. sweep it off. Just pay a bit of attention to the crevices around to make sure you've got no dust sitting in there. Because don't ask me how it does it, but it always finds its way onto your straight edge. So as I say, the reason we're using a straight edge to print it rather than doing it on the edge of the stone is because it enables us to do a rotation. It's just a little bit simpler. I've not respread the ink on the straight edge. I've not took enough off to worry about that at the moment, and that's still rocking. So we'll take it another couple of passes. I'll bring you back when we're getting something light. So that's had just that extra pass. And that's pivoting there and pivoting there. So that's looking a bit more healthy. And I don't think I've took off half a thou. So we've got a bit of blue picking up here and a little bit of blue picking up here, which is basically what we want now. But we've got to keep checking that rotation as we're going down, because we might find that the ends are still lower than the middle, and as this blue area starts creeping out, we might find that we're hitting the middle again and we're back onto teetering. So we take it down again. So we've had a couple more passes. So this is the next print. The reason my finger's there is to stop it falling off. I'm not putting any pressure on it, so I'm only moving it from this end. So that's a bit of a rub, and then we're just going to take it, and we're looking for it to rotate around about, for all intents and purposes, the middle of those holes. That's there, and that's there. So the plane that it's actually in contact with appears to be reasonably flat. It's not teetering. Let's just have a look, see if you can see that. No, I'll bring you down and show you the print. So that's basically where it's rotating. Bit of a gap with the odd fleck, and then another bit there. So we'll just keep working those areas down until that print becomes more consistent across its width. So we've moved over about 1 inch, so we've got a high spot under there. And this one's alright. So we're looking for something underneath that section. And there they are. Clean that off and do another print and see how it looks, because we've got pretty good coverage all the way down now. Still a bit high in this area. The only reason I'm moving it around over a bigger distance is to get a bit more ink down so I can see a bit more. And a bit of a high spot in the middle, and then that section, and a couple at the back. And on we go. Right, I've just changed over to put in the slightly tighter radius tip, and it's on a narrower blade. That's just because that's what I've got. And I've gone over it and give it basically 2 passes of short strokes, which are somewhere probably about 3/16 long, maybe 1/8 wide. And you can see I've got a distribution of contact, but it's by no means great. So now what I'm going to be doing is just taking off the blues with little tiny scrapes, and the idea is to increase the coverage now. The contact is hinging well. I've got contact points over the whole area. I've got no hollows, so I'll put it in the tripod and you can watch picking it out. Now, it doesn't seem to matter which way I put the camera, it's burning out with the light over the top. It's hard enough for me to see. When you get to this stage, you're not going to see big changes between the cycles. You're really you're taking off anything that you think is significantly higher than other areas, like a little black dot in the middle of it. Otherwise you're just breaking up the larger dots of blue. And it's very much a case of take your time. It's not a sprint contest. And if you do a print and it just looks completely different to the one you've just had, clean it off and do it again. Things don't change that rapidly if you're doing it right. That doesn't mean to say you keep printing until you get a result you're happy with, although it could do. and you got to keep moving around to get the light right to see everything. So you'll see I'm not working in any particular way, it's just random. You can get a good indication of how things are going to be when you clean off that bit of spirit. You can sometimes pick out the highest points come out almost black, but you've got to have a clean cloth to see them, because they've basically been stoned, so they're slightly shinier, which shows up as a black dot. Unless you get the light on it, and then it's a white dot. So I'll take you for a fly over that and you can see. As soon as my camera focuses. No, it's not going to do it. You can just pick out the sort of shiny bit versus the duller bits of the lower sections. Well, I'm calling that face done. I've before I printed it, I cleaned it all off, and I've just put a very light coat of Sharpie, in this case red. Put that all over it, let it dry, and then printed it, and it just helps with a bit of contrast. I'll drop this stencil over. Even now it's not easy to get the camera to pick it up, but there's 25 to 30 points per inch, and it's around about 50%. So now I can flip it up and finish off the base. Oh, so we're going to clean this up a little bit and try and improve the contact points. So we've got the smaller, narrower tip on it. It's got a slight, very slightly smaller, tighter radius, but it's not a huge difference. You know, you're not talking much. When you get to this sort of stage where you're pretty much on a flat surface or flat plane, you've got to be careful when you're stoning that you don't roll over the edges. So keep the stone moving and don't press down too hard. It will find the level. And I'm just literally gliding that over now. I'll print that and bring it back. I'll adjust the rigging, the plate. So that as a print's fine, and then we're moving into just a little bit too much ink on the plate. And what it's actually doing is the extra ink's holding it up off the plate. You can still pick out the dark points, which are the contact points. I'll get a pointy implement. So you can see the darker points there. They're the highest points. So you just go nibbling over them now. I'm actually just going to go over it and do another crosshatch, but from that direction. Alright, so we've given it basically two passes, one that way and one that way, using scrapes of around about 1/4 of an inch, the odd one a bit longer. I've swapped over the end of the scraper to give us a tighter radius, just for comparison. Don't ask me what the radius is, I don't know. A bit less than that one. On this tip, which is a 25mm tip, I've actually got that as a tight radius, and then the one on the other end is the same size as the others. So now we're going to go over it, and we're just going to pick out the bigger spots and the ones that are showing a bit dark in the middle. Take them off and then reprint it. And all we're looking at doing, we've got a nice even coverage and we've got relatively even spacing, but we just want a few more points per inch now. Now I noticed on the bevel face this a straight push seems to be giving me a bit of chatter, so I'm just introducing a bit of a curl. Not much, but it's just to try to reduce the chatter lines. Not that they matter, it's just that they don't look very pleasant. This bit of the scraping I find the most tedious. You can't get into a rhythm as such, and it's the bit that gives you the highest point count, but it's also the most tedious part. It'll probably take 3 or 4 cycles of this to get where I want it to be. I'm actually trying to work around the camera now. print and see what we got. So that's the print. Now it's a little bit more dense on this side, but that's actually more to do with the weight distribution over the edge, and also when I scoot it, shuffle it left and right on the stone, it will pick up more down this edge, just because that's where most of the ink is on the stone. So you've got to keep it mindful. If you look at it, they're not heavier prints, they're not darker in the middle, they're literally just got more ink round them. And that reading those kind of prints is a lesson you learn from experience, and it takes a while.